Today on our review for the Securities Industry Essentials exam, we are diving into one of the most important concepts for any aspiring financial professional, the rules around suitability and regulation best interest, often called Reg BI. Before you can recommend anything, you must know your customer. This means building a detailed customer investment profile. This is not just a suggestion, it is a requirement. You need to gather information like their age, financial situation, tax status, investment objectives, time horizon, and risk tolerance. An SIE exam question might present a scenario like a young, aggressive investor with a long time horizon and ask what type of investment might be appropriate, such as an equity growth fund. Conversely, it might describe a retired individual needing income and capital preservation, pointing towards something like a bond fund. This complete picture is the foundation for every recommendation you make. For a long time, the guiding principle was suitability. This meant a recommendation simply had to be appropriate for the customer's profile. However, the SEC raised the bar with regulation best interest. Reg BI requires broker-dealers and their representatives to act in the retail customer's best interest at the time a recommendation is made. This is a higher standard. A common exam trap is to see a recommendation that is technically suitable but not necessarily in the client's best interest. For instance, if two funds accomplish the same goal, but one has significantly higher fees, recommending the more expensive one would likely violate the care obligation under Reg BI. The exam will test your ability to distinguish between something that is merely suitable and something that is truly in the client's best interest. Let's focus on that care obligation. It demands that you exercise reasonable diligence, care, and skill. You have to understand the potential risks, rewards, and costs of the product you're recommending. You must have a reasonable basis to believe that the recommendation is in the customer's best interest and does not place your own financial interests ahead of theirs. A test question might give you a client's profile and several investment options. You'll need to select the one that not only fits their objectives, but also represents their best interest, which often involves factoring in costs and reasonably available alternatives. For example, imagine a client wants exposure to the S&P 500. You could recommend Fund A, an actively managed fund with a high expense ratio, or Fund B, a passively managed index fund with a very low expense ratio. While both are suitable, the care obligation compels you to justify why the much more expensive option is truly in that client's best interest. Another core component of Reg BI is the disclosure obligation. Before or at the time of your recommendation, you must provide the customer with a written disclosure of all material facts. The most important document here is Form CRS, the Customer Relationship Summary. This is a simple, easy-to-read document that explains the types of services offered, the fees and costs the customer will pay, any conflicts of interest, and the legal standard of conduct. The exam could ask about the purpose of Form CRS or when it must be delivered to a retail customer, which is before or at the time you enter into an account agreement or make a recommendation. To keep this all straight, especially under exam pressure, use this simple mental shortcut. Put the client's interests in the front seat and your own in the back. This phrase captures the essence of regulation best interest. It is not just about finding something that fits, it is about finding what is best for them, considering everything from their goals to the costs involved. It forces you to look beyond mere suitability and to prioritize the client's financial well-being, which is exactly what the regulators and the exam expect you to understand.